The bell above the glass door of the luxury car showroom rang softly as a tall black man stepped inside, his shoes dusty from the long walk he had taken through the business district that morning. The showroom was bright, filled with the shine of polished sports cars, leather interiors, and the quiet hum of expensive air conditioning. Every vehicle on display seemed to glow under perfectly positioned lights: Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and sleek electric models that represented wealth and prestige. The man paused just inside the entrance, taking a moment to absorb his surroundings. He was dressed simply, a faded gray hoodie, worn jeans, and old sneakers that had clearly seen better days. His hair was neatly trimmed, his posture calm and confident, yet nothing about his appearance screamed rich. To the sales staff, however, appearance was everything. Across the showroom, several salesmen glanced at him briefly and then looked away with disinterest. One of them sighed quietly, assuming the man was merely another window shopper who couldn't afford even the cheapest car on the floor. The man walked slowly between the vehicles, gently running his fingers along the smooth curve of a shining black sports car, reading the price tag as if he were considering its value. A young salesman named Tyler noticed him lingering and nudged his coworker with a smirk. "Another one who just wants to take selfies," he muttered under his breath. They both chuckled. After a few minutes, the black man approached the main counter where 3 salespeople were chatting about their weekend plans. He waited patiently, but none of them acknowledged him. Finally, he cleared his throat softly. Tyler glanced up with visible annoyance. "Can I help you?" he asked in a tone that suggested he hoped the answer would be no. The man smiled politely. "Yes, I'm interested in learning more about the black coupe by the window." Tyler barely looked at him and laughed lightly. "That car starts at $200,000, he said bluntly, as if trying to scare him off. "Are you sure you're in the right place?" The man's smile did not fade. "I'm sure," he replied calmly. Another salesperson, a woman named Angela, rolled her eyes and whispered loudly to a coworker, "These people always waste our time." The words landed like knives, though the man remained composed. Tyler crossed his arms. "Look, buddy, you can browse all you want, but touching the cars requires a serious buyer. Maybe try the used car lot down the street." Laughter rippled quietly among the staff. Customers nearby turned to look, some with curiosity, others with embarrassment. The man felt the heat of humiliation rising in his chest, but he did not raise his voice. He simply nodded, stepped back from the car, and said softly, "All right, I'll wait." The employees returned to their conversations, ignoring him completely, assuming he would eventually leave. But he didn't. He stayed, standing quietly near the center of the showroom as time passed, watching everything with calm, observant eyes while the walls around him echoed with silent judgment. Minutes felt like hours as the man stood there, the sting of mockery and disregard settling deeply into his chest, yet his face remained unreadable. Customers moved in and out of the showroom, some dressed in suits, some dripping with designer labels, and every one of them was greeted warmly with smiles, handshakes, and complimentary coffee. The difference in treatment was impossible to ignore. When a wealthy-looking couple entered, Tyler practically ran to greet them. "Welcome. Please, take a look around. Can I offer you anything?" he beamed. The same man who had been dismissed moments earlier stood barely 10 feet away, invisible. At one point, the black man walked back toward the black coupe and carefully inspected the interior through the glass. Angela noticed and rushed toward him, anger flashing in her eyes. "Didn't we tell you not to touch the cars?" she snapped. "This isn't a museum." The man met her gaze calmly. "I wasn't touching it," he said gently. "I was just looking." "Well, look from a distance," she replied sharply. "We've had enough of you wasting space here." Her voice was loud enough that nearby customers could hear, and several turned to watch, uncomfortable but silent. The man stepped back obediently, his heart pounding, not from fear, but from the bitter weight of being judged unworthy without a single word spoken about who he really was. A security guard approached him cautiously, summoned by a signal from Tyler. "Is there a problem here?" the guard asked, already eyeing the man suspiciously. Tyler gestured toward him dismissively. He's been loitering. Doesn't look like a buyer. The guard folded his arms. Sir, if you're not planning to purchase anything, I'll have to ask you to leave. The man exhaled slowly, the humiliation cutting deeper than before. I am planning to buy, he said quietly. Laughter escaped Tyler's mouth before he could stop himself. With what? Pocket change, he scoffed. The room grew tense. A few customers shifted uncomfortably, sensing something deeply wrong with the way this man was being treated, but no one spoke up. The black man glanced around the showroom one last time, memorizing every sneer, every whisper, every sideways look. For a brief moment, his eyes reflected disappointment, not just in the people before him, but in the system that allowed such treatment to feel normal. He turned toward the exit slowly, the bell above the door chiming as he opened it. Just before stepping outside, he paused and looked back over his shoulder. You might want to remember this moment, he said softly. Tyler laughed again. Sure, buddy. We'll remember the guy who couldn't afford to dream. The door closed behind him, the sound sharp and final. For the staff, it was just another dismissed stranger, another poor man who didn't belong in a place of luxury. They returned to their jobs, convinced the encounter was over. None of them noticed the black luxury SUV that was parked directly outside, engine still running, its tinted windows hiding the figure inside waiting patiently. None of them noticed the subtle confidence in the man's walk as he stepped out of view, a confidence that had never truly disappeared. Less than 30 minutes later, a sudden shift rippled through the showroom as the front doors opened wide once again, this time with authority rather than hesitation. The same black man walked in, but now he was flanked by two sharply dressed men in business suits and a woman holding a digital tablet. The energy in the room changed instantly. The staff straightened up, sensing that these were not ordinary visitors. Tyler was the first to step forward, forcing a polite smile. Welcome to our showroom, he said smoothly, not yet recognizing the man at the center of the group. The man stopped just a few feet from the counter, his expression calm, controlled, and unreadable. Is this how you welcome all your customers? He asked quietly. Tyler blinked, confused by the tone. Of course, he replied quickly. We pride ourselves on professional service. The man tilted his head slightly. Interesting, he said. Because that wasn't the experience I had earlier. Angela suddenly recognized him, and her face drained of color. She leaned toward Tyler and whispered urgently, It's him, the man from before. Tyler's confident smile wavered. The suited men beside the black man exchanged knowing glances. One of them cleared his throat. Perhaps we should introduce ourselves formally, he said. This is Mr. Damon Carter. The name hit the air like a thunderclap. The manager, who had just stepped out of his office upon hearing the commotion, froze mid-step. His eyes widened. Damon Carter, he repeated in disbelief. The black man nodded. Yes. The same Carter who owns a 40% stake in this dealership. Silence fell over the showroom so thick it felt suffocating. Tyler's mouth went dry. Angela took an involuntary step backward. The security guard stiffened where he stood. The confident laughter, the mocking tone, the careless arrogance from earlier, all of it vanished in an instant, replaced by pure shock and fear. The manager rushed forward immediately, hands trembling slightly. Mr. Carter. We had no idea you were coming today. Please, forgive us. This is a misunderstanding. Damon's gaze moved slowly across every face that had dismissed him earlier. A misunderstanding, he repeated calmly. Your staff assumed my worth based on my clothes. They laughed at me. They tried to throw me out. He turned to Tyler. You told me I belonged in the used car lot. Tyler opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. Sweat beaded on his forehead. Damon turned to Angela. You accused me of wasting space. Her eyes filled with panic. I didn't know who you were, she stammered. Damon's voice remained steady, but the weight of it crushed the room. That's exactly the problem, he said. The customers who had witnessed the earlier humiliation watched now in stunned silence as the power dynamic reversed completely. The man who had been treated as invisible now stood as the most powerful person in the room. Damon walked calmly across the showroom, every employee watching him nervously. The manager stammered apologies while Damon addressed the staff. You judged me by my clothes, laughed at me, and tried to throw me out. That's the real problem. Tyler, Angela, and the security guard stood frozen, guilt written on their faces. Damon announced immediate consequences: suspensions, retraining, and mandatory bias training for all staff. Then, with calm authority, he wrote a check for the black coupe, buying it at full price. The earlier customers quietly apologized, and Damon nodded. Thank you, but the apology shouldn't be necessary, he said. As he drove away in his new car, the dealership remained humbled, marked forever by the day they underestimated the man they had mocked.